Hi everyone, I'm Shelly and you're watching There's No Place Like Home. Today I wanted to share with you why we no longer use Life of Fred math. If you are relatively new to my channel, you might be thinking to yourself, when did you ever use Life of Fred math? Because it's not something that I have mentioned recently because we've been using CTC math and Abeka arithmetic with my younger kids. My review though of Life of Fred math has been gaining some traction though, and so I've still been getting some questions about how I'm using Life of Fred math. So I just wanted to make a video today to explain why we actually are not using Life of Fred math anymore. Now we are using Life of Fred Language Arts. My daughter, who will be going into 12th grade, she has been using it for all of high school, so that we still use. However, Life of Fred math is no longer on our curriculum list. Now, if you don't know what Life of Fred math is, it's simply a literature-based math curriculum. It goes all the way from elementary, even up to like college level. I'm pretty sure that they even have a statistics course in it. I know that they have calculus as well. And I want to just point out right away that Life of Fred is a fantastic curriculum. I have absolutely nothing at all against it. I know that it works really, really well for some families. And I know that even when I see it still on my bookshelf, because I'm not going to get rid of it, I get nostalgic every time that I look at it because we did have some good times with it. And I'm even thinking of, trying to come up with a way to incorporate it maybe into our morning routine, even if it's just to read it as a story together, to incorporate some living math in. And that's really what it is about. Since it is literature based, it is made for those children who really do not like math, but they will have to at least enjoy reading or listening to stories if they are going to enjoy this curriculum. And if you want a better review of what the curriculum is, I'll leave a link in the description box because it might be something that you would want to use with your own children. We used it probably for about 2 years, and at first it worked really well for us. But there are a few things, just a few changes. Homeschools change over time, and this is something that I try to reiterate in all of my videos. Just because something is working today doesn't mean that it's going to work next year or even next month. But Life of Fred is a really great example, at least for us, of how that can happen. So the first reason that we stopped using it is, actually, let me just show you really quickly. So this is an example of an elementary Life of Fred book. There are several of them. I'm thinking maybe 19 of the elementary ones. There is also an intermediate level. So this is an example of an intermediate level. And there are a few of those as well. And then this is the high school level. So as you can see, they get thicker as time goes on. But that's just because in elementary school and at the intermediate level, your kids will go through more than one book in a year. At the elementary level, they'll use a lot of books. But anyway, so the first reason that we stopped using Life of Fred, though, is because my kids ended up wanting something that was more to the point. So at first they thought that the stories were really cute and they really liked listening to them and learning about a little boy in the story named Fred Gauss. And it was a very novel idea for them. But as they got older, they started to want to just get their math done. They just wanted to finish. And that isn't something that can really happen if you are reading a chapter and then even though there are only maybe 5, maybe 10 questions at the end of each chapter for your kids to do. My kids just really got to the point where they didn't want to sit through the stories anymore. They just wanted to get their math done. And so that was the very first inclination to me that maybe it was time to change curriculums. The second reason was because my kids did need more practice. So since there are only sometimes even some of them, I think, only had like one problem at the end of each chapter. You typically did one chapter a day. And, some of them also, it was usually around 5. I think it averaged around 5 questions, especially for the elementary program and even like the intermediate. But in the end, my kids did need more practice. And I know that some people will supplement with Life of Fred, but they will still use it with another curriculum, which is actually a great idea if you want to do something like that. And I can see now why people use it more as a supplement, because My kids at the time enjoyed only having 5 problems, but it wasn't enough for it to stick in their heads for how to do it. So the third reason was because the early books, they moved too slowly for my kids. They just didn't enjoy the pace of the earlier books like Apples and Butterflies and Cats. I think that, for example, 4 + 3 = 7, that was like the main addition problem in several chapters, was just 4 + 3 = 7. And the stories are cute because they show you how you use math in real life. And yeah, they even can show you how algebra is used in real life, which I never even thought that was possible, but I'll get to that later. But yeah, so learning 4 + 3 = 7 in different ways for a few chapters, it just got boring for my kids. And actually, I do have to say that while I don't focus on grade levels. I meet my kids where they're at. And that's what I think homeschooling is all about, is tailoring your child's education to fit them. I do have to say, though, that for parents who are more interested in grade levels, because Life of Fred is not based on grade levels, but when I moved my kids over to CTC Math from Life of Fred, my kids were all 1 grade level behind from being in the Life of Fred curriculum, just because things did tend to move a little bit more slowly. Now, I don't mind that at all, but my kids, on the other hand, it kind of hurt their pride a little bit because they know what grade they would be in if they were in school. And so that was something that they weren't too happy about. And I do have to point out that with my children who did not use Life of Fred Math and who just used the Abeka curriculum, they had no problem then transitioning to CTC Math and going right on the grade level that they would be in if they were in school. So that's something to think about. Now, this might not be the case for everyone. Some people I know said that it was a great success for their kids, and their kids did really well with it. Everything stuck. They were right where they needed to be. But with my kids, it was a different story. It was kind of too slow for them. And in the end, it held them back. And again, I'm okay with meeting my kids where they are, but my kids, no, it did. I mentioned it. It hurt their pride. So there's that. So the next reason was because the high school level books were too confusing. So even though the high school level books, they still incorporate the literature based method into it. Like they put even the algebra in story form and how you would use that in real life. And I've got to say that even as the parent, even sitting there and doing it with my kids, some of it seemed convoluted to me, and I couldn't even get it into my head how it would work in a real life situation. And so since there was not that much practice at the end of each chapter, my kids didn't really get what they needed out of it. And also I have to say that the way that it explained some of the algebra was confusing. And I mean, I enjoy algebra, but it wasn't really a straightforward sort of way. Now, I do have to say that there are children out there who think differently and who need a different approach to math. And that is, my neighbors are setting off fireworks, so I hope you don't hear that. But anyway, some kids do need a different approach to math. So this would probably be a great choice for them. But for my kids and for me as the one who was helping them, sometimes I would just sit scratching my head thinking this doesn't make any sense to me at all. And so the last reason that we stopped using Life of Fred Math was just because once my kids started getting older, like even, 11, 12 years old, the stories just got to be too juvenile for them. And they were like, really, Mom, do I really have to read this? This is about a 5-year-old. So it didn't really hold their attention anymore, just because they were at the point where they're like, why do I need to read a story about a 5-year-old in order to do my math? And that's probably linked to the first reason of why we stopped, just because they wanted something that was more to the point. They just wanted to get their work done. They didn't want to read all these stories, and they thought that, well, my older kids started to think that the stories were just too childish. But again, I really have to reiterate that I love this curriculum. I still do, even though it didn't give my kids everything that they needed for math. I still look back on it with fond memories, and I really do. I want to think of a way to incorporate at least the stories into our homeschool routine, and if I ever do that, I will let you know how we're going to go about it. Anyway, that's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one either here or over on Instagram. And if you like my work and would like to check out my Patreon page, I will leave a link in the description box for that as well. And I hope you have a great day.